always. Okay, I got a quick question.
Go for it, man.
That song's Jack Ritter?
Jack Ritter, yeah.
That's what the name is?
Yeah, I randomly called it that, yeah.
So the guy from
Three's Company?
Three's Company.
Yeah.
His name wasn't Jack Ritter.
I think we might have screwed it up, but that's what we attributed to. That's what we thought it was.
I think it's the real actor's part name and then the
I think you're probably
last
right.
name or something.
I think we've screwed it up, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why, but when I heard the song, I'm like, I got to know right now. We have to record this and tell people. I don't know why I felt the need to do that, but I did. So.
All right, I got a question for you as well.
Okay.
What is an e-biker's favorite fruit?
Oh, God, I know this. No, I have no idea.
It's a watermelon.
Oh, God. You could do that as a triathlete. I think that'd be better if you said, what's a triathlete's favorite fruit?
Right. Or even a road biker, right?
Only because as long as I've been selling bikes, like triathletes are so focused on how many watts they're doing.
Wait, say that again. Triathlete.
Triathletes.
Triathletes. Okay, cool.
Am I saying it wrong?
No, for some reason you had like a weird.
Did it flow?
It just flowed.
It flowed.
Kind of funny. I don't know.
I've said it a lot.
All right, another question.
Okay.
Why did the e-biker get a promotion?
Because he was cheating?
Because he always goes the extra mile.
That's legit. I like that.
I got a 3 for today.
Oh, shit.
Final one.
Okay.
What's the difference between an e-biker and a regular mountain biker?
20 pounds.
That's probably a better answer. No, one pedals and one pretends to pedal.
Oh, that's brutal. So,
all right.
You know what? So before we get started, because we're gonna talk about bike shop stuff.
Yeah, bike shop.
I got something to get off my chest.
Don't take your shirt off, dude. For Christ's sakes,
it's not hair. This is bugging me, and your jokes kind of reminded me like e-bikes and stuff. And we've been having a little bit of talks in the shop. We've been getting a ton of these scooters. E-scooters in the shop, and
they just need like flats repaired.
Yeah, some of them are solid tires and stuff. Some of them
that sounds like a fun.
And then they have a wire that goes to the rear. And you got to. I don't know. One guy came in and he's like, "I need this wire." There's no support for those things out there. People are buying them left and right. Bike shops don't have the parts. We're not. We don't have 12-inch solid tires or whatever they're running. It's something that I'm like wondering it's an issue. And then I will tell you, I probably shouldn't say this because somebody's going to get me in trouble, but I ran over one of those people.
You ran over one of those people?
Yeah.
No, Dane, we shouldn't talk about this on the podcast.
I know. So this guy was a super nice guy. Nothing happened. He was okay.
You didn't run him over. You bumped into him.
Yeah. So what was happening is I was leaving a business and entering a
I'm going to have
roadway.
to cut this out of the podcast.
No, it's okay. I don't care because he wasn't hurt or anything. But what he did was so against the rules. Now, when I hit him, it was 1 mile an hour or less. Like it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't violent. He didn't get hurt.
Right.
But I was pulling out and I'm looking left because I'm turning right onto a roadway. And I had scanned already, but it's a divided. So I don't really need to heavily look to my right because I'm not.
Except for pedestrians.
Yeah. And I look to my right and then I look to the left. I see a car coming. I'm watching that car and then I decide to pull out and I hear just a yell and this guy is in front of me now. And this guy was on the sidewalk on this thing, no helmet, doing like 25 miles an hour. And, of course I got out, made sure he was okay. I gave him a ride to his car. He was very nice.
Yeah.
He was more worried if his jeans got scuffed up.
Okay.
After the fact, after I felt a huge amount of guilt, I don't want to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
I started thinking about it, and my daughter actually asked me about it, and we talked about this as a kind of a learning thing. He's on the wrong side of the street, on the sidewalk, on an electric scooter doing 25 miles an hour, and then made the decision to go in front of a car without making eye contact. The more I think about it, I don't feel guilty. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's going to be mad at me that rides one of these things, but truthfully in this in this world right now, he made a lot of bad decisions.
That's like a Darwin Awards.
And I'm thankful that nobody got hurt.
Yeah,
of course. It didn't do anything to my vehicle, so I didn't notice anything. Those solid tires had popped off, so he couldn't ride the bike. So his his scooter was usable. But man, I am a little torn because I'm a huge e-bike proponent and I like them.
Yeah.
But it does make you understand that there are some e-bikes that are causing, or e-vehicles or whatever you want to say it, that are not a good representation and not necessarily good for society. And somebody riding 25 miles an hour, no helmet on the sidewalk on the wrong side is just, they're just going to get hurt.
You heard it here first. Dane Higgins is an e-scooter gatekeeper.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's like you said, it's like,
hater.
I'm more worried about,
hater.
Maybe the education when you buy that thing should be out there. Maybe there should be something that helps people understand.
I don't think Walmart has educational programs.
Those are the issues that get lumped into everybody. And so then people out there riding an actual e-bike, doing it as a trail bike because they have either a reason that they need to or
get lumped into it.
Doing it responsibly.
I knew better than to bring up an e-bike joke because I knew it was going to send you in an e-bike.
It triggers me. Yeah. So I just had to throw that out there because I would love it if somebody had an opinion and they want to share it.
On e-scooters?
Yeah. Like I those little free, or not free ones, but the ones you get downtown.
Like the birds
and stuff like that. I get those. I think they're actually kind of cool, if you don't have to park, nearby and you can scoot around. But just don't go the wrong way on the sidewalk at 25 miles an hour. And if a guy's pulling out of a thing, don't just go in front of him.
Like no matter what you're riding, whether it's a acoustic bike or an e-bike or an e-scooter or a regular scooter or a skateboard, don't go the wrong way and don't pull out in front of cars.
No, he's just going way too fast. So.
All right, let's get off this tangent.
Sorry. Okay, that was 7 minutes of your life.
7 minutes of my life
7 minutes.
Of e-scooter hate. That's perfect. All right, I have my own Darwin Awards story.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I am just now starting to get feeling back in the top of my mouth.
I told you.
Inside my mouth.
I told you if you keep doing that, that'll happen.
That's not what you think. No, so on Tuesday night, I've got a group of guys, and we do a night ride we call the Fight Club, and we were out doing that ride.
You're not supposed to talk about it.
Not supposed to talk about Fight Club. Yeah. So I'm the slowest in the group, right? So I'm in the back, and I get a cactus stuck in my arm, like a meaty. It's like a cholla, but like the chunky green ones, right?
Yeah,
with the big like gnarly needles.
Yeah, the anorexic ones. They're not chubby.
It's dark outside. I don't have a helmet light on. I just have one on my bars, and I see it, and it's like kind of hurting. So I'm like, oh shit, I know I'm supposed to stop and like get a comb, and you kind of use a comb or a Afro pick or whatever to kind of get it out.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. I just reached over with my right arm to my left arm, with my right hand to my left arm, and I tried to pull it out with my fingers.
Oh God.
And it got stuck in my glove and like very painful. Mm-hmm. And I just instinctively went to bite it, to pull it out of my glove, right?
I gotta question your instincts,
Darwin,
man.
yeah, exactly. So I got most of it off, and that was no big deal, but a little 3-pronged piece, like maybe, a half inch, gets in my mouth, turns around. One of the 3 prongs gets stuck between my front teeth from the inside out, like poking my front lip through my tooth. The other 2 prongs stick in the top of my palate.
Oh my God. What is wrong with you? Why didn't you not just stop your bike?
Jesus Christ. So then I stopped.
Or why didn't you have a camera filming this? Because this would have been great.
Yeah. So everyone's like way ahead of me, and I pull over. I'm like, oh my God. And it took a while to get it out because it was wedged up into my palate. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how far, but far enough that it was hard to get out. And then the front piece was like stuck between my front 2 teeth. So I finally like wiggled it and got it out. And I was bleeding and spitting blood out.
Jesus.
And then like an hour later, the whole top of my mouth went numb. And it's been 2 days now, and I'm just now getting feeling back in the top of my mouth. So
you're giving me crap about the e-scooter hate, and you just grossed everybody out with your bloody mouth story.
And I go tell the guys, they're like, what happened? Did you crash or something? I'm like, not exactly. Cactus. They're like, oh, well, what happened? I'm like, oh, it's a long story. Like,
Oh
In our
God.
group text, they've been joking about it for like 3 days.
I felt that story because cactus, for some of the listeners that know cactus, it is painful. And a lot of cactus will have a sheath on it. So when you pull it out, that sheath kind of stays in you, which causes a lot of the, a discomfort or what have you. Sometimes they're poisonous or they have a poison.
Yeah, something, or some kind of allergic reaction or something.
Yep. Yeah. So there's lots of stuff that's going on there. But for people that don't have cactus, just be thankful. You probably have some bug that does something similar. We don't have the bugs here.
We don't have ticks causing us not to be able to eat beef.
Yeah, there's so everywhere's got stuff you got to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we're gonna jump into a Bike Shop Secrets episode here since you guys like these, and I've got a list of questions of things that I've run into recently.
Sounds good.
Which, by the way, is kind of like how this works. Like I'm in my garage working on shit, and I'm like, God damn it, how do you do this? Or I got a question, and then I come here and I ask Dane. And oftentimes I text Dane, like, what the fuck should I do here, man? And he's like, you're an idiot.
Take it to a shop, dude.
Let me help you. Take it to a shop. You're an idiot. Okay. The first thing was my buddy is looking at switching to a different frame. And he has an opportunity to buy just the frame. And so I'm like, hey, I think most of your parts should swap over, but there's some that may not. So I thought it would be cool to talk through if you're thinking about switching frames and keeping as many of your existing components, your suspension, your drivetrain, your cranks, your wheels, your handlebars, all that stuff, as much as your seat post. And I know this is like a deep topic.
Yeah, I'm going to narrow it down after you get done.
Yeah, you narrow it down. But like, what do our listeners need to, and myself as well, what do we need to consider to ensure that we've got compatible parts for the new frame? And as I'm kind of budgeting it out, I need to know, like, what am I going to need to buy, or what will just like swap over. So, over to you, man.
We'll kind of narrow this down. So there's a couple companies that are starting to change the way that they do business, and they're offering frames
like Revel.
Yeah. And Intense.
Intense as well. That's right. We talked about that before.
Yeah. And so it's kind of makes a lot of sense business wise in this really turbulent times, because they don't have to try and keep up with every new product that comes out. My biggest example is when Fox put out a new damper in their fork, but the fork stayed the same. Anybody who had that old damper in a box on their bike all of a sudden had to start thinking about discounting their brand new bike that's never been out of a box just because the damper was different. And I think that made a lot of manufacturers kind of second guess whether they should actually offer a full bike or not. And especially the smaller ones, which are trying to make ends meet. So we're going to narrow this down to mountain bikes. We're going to narrow it down to 1x drivetrains.
Perfect.
And the reason that is
I get it.
You do a front derailleur, it gets worse. It gets so bad. And then not road bikes, also very bad. So there's a couple things. One, you have to think about rear hub spacing is one.
So what are the typical rear hub spacing? So there's boost and super boost and all that. How does that work?
Boost and super boost are probably the most common now. But let's say you have a 2012 bike, which is not unheard of, that somebody has something like a stump jumper that's got 29er full suspension, and you're sprucing it up with a new frame. That may have a non-boost rear hub.
Okay.
And so
what's the numbers for boost?
So boost is 148.
148 millimeter.
And then it's a 12 millimeter axle in the rear. Okay. That's a pretty standard size. It's on most bikes. So when you say boost, that's usually it.
So boost is 148 by 12 millimeter, and that's the spacing of the rear axle.
Yep.
And the diameter of the
through axle.
The through axle.
Yep. Yeah. And so if your wheel is going to fit or not, you know. And so then the next one is Super Boost. Yep. You'll find that on different brands. Pivot is the one we sell, so they do a lot of those. There's a couple other brands that use it. I think Evil, and there's a couple others that I honestly can't tell you off the top of my head, but it's not just Pivot. And that spacing is 157. Oh my, I almost forgot that, and that's pretty bad.
We would have had to use Bob.
I do it all the time. Well, and I've got a ton of Super Boost bikes. So Super Boost, so the hub spacing is important. You got to have that. The next thing I would say is your bottom bracket.
Well, hang on. Since we're on hub spacing, can we go to the front of the bike? Is there any differences in the front of the bike from a hub spacing perspective?
If you're doing just a frame and you're bringing your fork over, whatever your fork and wheel is will stay the same.
Perfect.
So that won't be an issue. So the next thing, so if you want to go on that note, the head tube and the headset
Right.
are going to, in a lot of cases, change. Most bikes now are tapered, which means that the lower bearing is bigger in diameter than the upper bearing.
So it's like 1 1/8 and 1 1/2. Is that right?
Yeah, for the most part, there's a little goofiness that every once in a while will pop up. I've got a fork in suspension right now is 1 1/2 and 1 1/2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a straight 1 1/2. It's an older diameter. And then there is a new kind of thing that's happening on some of the bigger hit bikes where they're putting, I may get this wrong because it's new, but 52 millimeter on the top and bottom.
Okay.
But then the upper bearing is shrunk to a 1 1/8.
Okay.
So like the big thing to know from what I just said is that the outer diameter of the headset cup is all very variable. So you can't just take a headset from one bike and stick it in another. Sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. Sometimes just the lower cup matches and the upper doesn't, or vice versa. And so the headset companies have actually started selling the headsets separate now. You don't buy a headset like you used to, you know, where you get the upper and the lower.
Yeah, you can buy one or the other.
Like I remember, you know, the biggest candy that we would get for our bikes was a Chris King headset. And you would buy the whole headset and it was 1 1/8 and you'd press it in and boom, you're done. Now you may have a different lower and a different upper. And Chris King even sells them separate, or they'll have a configurator, you know, where it's like you'll put in dimensions. So that is probably one of the harder ones that we see people struggle with, because there's also a standard where they may actually mold the carbon fiber frame or even aluminum frame to have the bearing seat. So you don't actually put a cup in the frame, you just put the bearing in.
Right.
And so that can be very complicated.
All right. So we'll keep track so we can remind them. So rear hub spacing, booster, super boost,
Headset.
headset. What's next?
On your head tube of the bike can change between brands. So if you are getting a older bike and then putting a newer bike, it's more likely that it'll shrink. And so you'll have plenty of steerer tube on your fork. But in the opposite, we had a lot of people
trying to put old forks on new frames.
Yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
New fork on old frame.
Or sometimes a brand will be really committed to a low stack height in the front. Yep. And then the next brand isn't very committed. And then the fork won't fit. Like
so
the steer
fork
tube
steer length.
Yep.
Making sure you got enough. So we got rear hub spacing, we got headset, and fork steer length.
Yep. Yeah. Now, once you've got that fork on the bike and it's the fork you used to have, your stem will fit that because it used to, but you may change the stack depending on how many spacers and stuff.
All right. So since we're on the front of the bike, before we move back, does rake matter between frames? So, and maybe explain what rake is.
Yeah, offset is one thing. Yeah. Rake's a different. So it's kind of, if you try and look up the subject, some people call one thing, and it gets a little weird.
Okay.
The biggest
but I see like 44 and 52 rake a lot on forks. When I buy a fork, I got to pick, do I want a 44 or 52?
So the latest fork that you bought was a rigid for a gravel bike.
Yep.
And the term rake is more likely going to be on a rigid fork.
Okay.
Whereas on a fork, a suspension fork, which I deal with way more, it's offset.
Okay.
And then it gets weird because where they do the offset is a little weird. And there was a little Wild West time where nobody was doing it the same. So I will tell you the offset will change the angle of the fork blades relative to the steerer tube. And that can increase or decrease the trail of the fork, which affects the handling.
Right.
Okay.
So if you can match the offset to the new frame, probably the best bet.
The fork manufacturer will usually have a recommended.
Right.
I will tell you that the difference that you will feel on the bike can often not be noticeable. Some people will freak out about it. My advice when people are asking me about it is if you're buying a brand new fork and you have a choice, I would
buy the right one.
Buy the right one. If you're buying a used fork and it's a killer deal, I would not stress a lot about it.
Okay.
And then is another point where they were kind of fiddling with geometry as 29s were coming out, where people were actually finding that one would do different characteristics than the other. So they would tune their ride by changing the offset.
Okay. Yeah. So offset is a nice to have, but probably not a have to have to make your bike work with the new frame.
It can affect it, but it's going to affect a little bit of trail and geometry difference, but it's subtle. And so it's not something to freak out about. It's more important that you have an appropriate fork. So like if you had let's say, a Trek Super Caliber cross-country bike that's a 100-millimeter travel bike.
That's a great one. So making sure the travel matches.
Yeah, if you take that fork and then put it on a pivot switchblade, which is supposed to have 160 mil.
That's going to be a weird feeling bike.
Then you're going to need to change the fork. The length of that fork needs to be longer so that the bottom bracket doesn't drag on the ground while you're riding it.
And most of the bike frame websites will say, hey, this bike is set up for this much travel in the front.
Yep.
For forks of this range. And if it doesn't, I've found that if you just send them a note, they'll respond back and say, like I wanted to do something crazy with a Revel Ranger and put a big old giant fork on it. And I wrote Revel and I'm like, hey, this is what I want to do. Is this crazy? And they're like, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the bike shop secrets you should know about when it comes to that. Sometimes the manufacturer will tell you not to do something, and their motivation is to protect the integrity of the design.
Yeah.
And sometimes their motivation is to not break the frame.
Yeah.
And
it's hard to know which is which, right?
Yeah. And so I'll give you an example. When we had a team rider for the Guru team who was riding a Santa Cruz, I think a Nomad, and she wanted to put a triple clamp fork on it, a full like DVO triple downhill fork, because she loved the bike, she loved the fit, and she didn't really need a ton of rear travel. She just wanted a little more in the front, get a little raked out. I emailed Santa Cruz and they're like, no, the head tube, and they were nice enough to actually tell me why. Sometimes they don't tell you. But the head tube is not designed for the stiffness, and if the fork doesn't flex, the head tube is not strong enough.
Not designed to flex, and you could break the head tube off effectively.
Exactly. Yeah. And so they've factored in a single crown fork, which has flex in it. Yeah. And if you go stiffening that, you could break the fork or the head tube. And so that was a good answer because it showed us that there is a real reason. So Rocky Mountain Slayer comes with a standard fork. And then we found out it's approved for a triple clamp. And then later, the next year, they actually made a park version, which had a triple clamp.
Oh, interesting.
So some companies think about that and some don't. There's been other things so I'll give you an example. Chris Kokalis, or if Brian Mason's listening, they'll be mad at me.
From Pivot.
I rode the Phoenix downhill bike. It's spec'd for a Fox X2 rear shock as a downhill bike.
Yeah.
Good shock, very linear, but I like coil. And so I put a coil on. Right on Pivot's website, it says not approved for coil. Most of that, for the most part, is because the leverage ratio isn't correct.
Right.
And you won't get the right feel, and it will mess with the integrity of their design.
Like the ride quality, not necessarily integrity for like break the frame, but like it just won't feel right.
There is some bikes that have what's called a clevis joint for the rear shock that they will load a shock poorly, and a coil doesn't have as much stiffness built in because it's just got one small damper rod rather than the air can also creating stiffness. And so those will either tear up a rear shock or sometimes break a rear shock, which has happened.
Okay.
So that was a combo. Hey, it's not really designed for that because the leverage ratio is not correct for that. And this design has been known to eat up rear shocks or actually break them. And they don't want to be responsible if that shock breaks and hurts their frame. They're not going to warranty that. That's not a warranty if they told you not to do it.
I would think that most frames come with a rear shock if you buy just the frame. But let's say there's a couple examples where they don't. Do you not also have to worry about eyelet to eyelet, or what's that called, stroke length or whatever?
Yeah. If they're going to sell you a frame and it doesn't have a shock, they're definitely going to tell you what's supposed to be on there.
Right.
And the length of the shock is the eye to eye.
Eye to eye.
And then there's what's called a stroke length. And the stroke length is how far that shock can actually compress or collapse.
Right.
And then some shocks, like we found out where we worked with your Specialized, the shock can be the same shock but have two different stroke lengths. And that's a limiter that's put inside the shock. And so with yours, we pulled the limiter out.
I didn't even know we did that.
Yeah, that's overstroking. And so when you do that, you have to test the bike to make sure there's clearance. So again, in the case of Rocky Mountain, they build their bikes very modular and very adjustable. And so we found that you could really play with stuff on a rocky mountain,
right,
and you wouldn't have frame interference, and it's one of the hidden selling features of that bike is that you could kind of turn it into different travels, depending on what shocks you put on. And so some bikes are really fluid that way. Other bikes, you have to buy brackets to do that.
Yep.
And then other bikes, so like I have a Norco Optic right now, and it's kind of a weird bike, and I love it. It actually rides super smooth, and I got to tell you, it's one of the smoothest bikes I've ever ridden, and it's like a 125 millimeter rear travel bike, but it's a high pivot.
Yep, we talked about that before.
Yeah, and so when we were talking to Norco, I don't know if on the podcast I brought it up, but in private I brought it up with them.
We did in private.
Yeah, and so I'm going to overstroke it, not necessarily on their recommendation,
just on the suspension guru's recommendation.
Yeah. And so I'm going to eke out a little bit more travel out of that bike because I feel like it could get a little bit more rowdy than a 125 millimeter usually is, and it's super smooth. And so I have one of the new RockShox Vivids, and it has a stroke limiter in it, and I'm going to pull that out and make sure there's clearance.
So, and when you make sure there's clearance, but tell our listeners, what's the process to do that?
So this is tricky because you have to be careful.
Because you can actually damage the bike while you're testing it.
Well, you can, but realistically, you can also get a false
positive
or false idea of the travel. Inside a lot of shocks, they have a bottom out bumper. And if you collapse that, so let's say it's an air shock and you take the air valve, the Schrader valve out and let it collapse, and then you slowly sit on it and make sure there's nothing contacting. You don't want to jump on it because, again, you don't want to damage it. Yeah. But you're going to look for any kind of limitations in that travel. Sometimes there's a bridge across the rear tire that can come up and contact the seat tube. Sometimes the tire will actually hit the seat tube. Sometimes there's a lower swing arm that has it will hit something else, right, like the way the frame's shaped or something. There's a lot of things you have to think about. The biggest thing that we have to watch out for is you could have a 5 millimeter bottom out bumper in that shock and it may not be compressed like it would
during your test.
Yeah.
So you got to leave yourself some.
You have to have a good idea of how much more it's going to keep going, even though you didn't get it to go all the way. And you have to be safe, So I had a couple people actually, after we talked about overstroking yours, actually come in and ask if they could overstroke their bikes. We tested them, and one of them was a pivot. And I'm like, I can't do this on a pivot. There is not enough room. They've designed the most travel you can get out of this bike.
That's interesting. So I mean, from an overstroke perspective, it sounds like smartest thing to do is to bring it into an expert like yourself.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, just to make sure you're not going to jack something up. Because the last thing you want to do is crack your frame.
Yeah. You don't want to put some damage in because the bike company will know. When you go to them and say, "Oh, I don't know what happened,"
like this came from this. You did this because of Mountain Cog, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So you do want to be smart about it. Some brands, know you're going to probably do it, but may still not approve it. And so that's the thing about when you're dealing with some of these, when the brand tells you not to do something, they are protecting the design, how they intended it to use. They're also protecting the integrity of the quality of the ride that they wanted it to be ridden as. And then they may be, protecting you from damaging something. So if you're going to mess with the bike, you got to know what you're doing, and then you got to own it if you mess it up.
Right on, man. All right, so we got rear hub spacing. We talked about the front spacing, which typically your fork will go with your wheel.
If it doesn't have a shock, you got to match the eye to eye and the stroke.
Eye to eye and the stroke of the rear suspension.
Every once in a while, you got to make sure that the shock will fit. So we have a new bike that we're selling that we want to put. It needs a little help in the rear end. To be a little plusher. And so some of the customers are trying to put the Fox X2, which is a linear, very nice, the new 2026, I think is what they're calling it, is a really nice version. And they fixed a lot of the issues. And so people are really wanting this thing, but it's kind of bulky. And on this one particular bike, it won't actually fit on the bike. And so you have to be careful.
It's got, some of them had the piggyback reserve as well.
Santa Cruz had some issues on some of theirs where they have that little tunnel that you put the shock into, and people wanted to convert to coil, and the coil would rub on the tunnel. And so they've corrected that on a lot of their bikes, but you have to watch out for that. And then we had a bike, we sold a bike brand called Felt, and on their Sendy 27.5 bike, it had the way that the frame is shaped. When you put a reservoir on the rear, the reservoir could contact the frame. And so you couldn't put any shock with the reservoir on that. So we ended up putting a lot of Cane Creek inlines because they didn't have reservoirs, but you could get a coil.
Interesting.
So there are, constraints when you're putting a shock on that you got to make sure you're aware of.
So while we're on shocks, there's a couple things I've just thought of. There's different ways that the shocks connect too, right? There's like trunnion and something else. Like what's that?
There's trunnion, and then there's a normal eyelet. Then you'll have some specialty ones, like Specialized had a direct mount where it was designed to go into their yoke, and it was just for them.
Right.
There's been pull shocks in the past, which are really goofy. Man, you don't want to get one of those. Nobody makes those anymore, but it was an issue.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think if there's how many other ones. I had a Jekyll that was crazy. It was kind of like a trunnion,
right? But
you could move the mount up and down on the shock, so you could change the angles of the bike. It was really crazy.
That's
really crazy. Yeah. It was kind of a cool concept, to tell you the truth, but that died with the Cannondale's version of that Jekyll. They have a Jekyll, I think, now, but it doesn't use that.
Doesn't use that.
Yeah.
And then hardware. Isn't there like different spacers and things like that? That can be really tricky.
That's the bane of my existence because there's no standard. So they have 6mm holes. They got 8mm holes. They got 10mm holes. I can't remember if there's a smaller one. But then the width changes, and I don't really know how these people decide what width they use. But sometimes you'll have like a 3-inch long piece of like shock. They call them shock hardware or mounting hardware, and then sometimes they're barely bigger than the shock itself, width wise. And I have to keep all that stuff. So if you buy a new shock from me, I got to have that stuff lying around so that I can put that new shock on your bike.
Yeah, or you're ordering stuff.
They've calmed down on the interface in the shock, the hardware that fits in the shock. It's gotten a little bit more uniform. There's some that use a bushing that you actually press into the shock and it stays in there, and then you put the hardware on it, and RockShox uses that a lot. And then Fox uses either a 5 or a 9 piece. I can't remember. They have some crazy ones. They have stainless steel, stuff like that, but where you put these bushings in. And so you can't mix the brands, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
But the inner eyelet of the shock is the same. So I can put Fox hardware on the RockShox. I just have to pull that bushing out to do it. And you have a special tool to get that pressed in bushing out. So it's not easy to do in your garage. Some specialty tools for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
all right. One more thing I can think of, and maybe I'm missing something. Well, two more things I can think of. How about C-post?
Okay, that's a good one. So that one is like a lot of these where you can really just get into the weeds. So dropper posts. We're going to narrow that down to dropper posts.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason that is because a regular seat post, you just need the diameter.
So as long as the diameter is right, 31.6, 30.9,
for the
27.2, whatever, 28.
And that it's long enough to fit your legs.
Yep.
If you had a regular seat post and it's long enough or maybe even too long, you can actually cut that seat post in most cases and just put it in there.
Not a dropper. We're not talking about cutting down a dropper.
No, not a dropper. Although there is one on the market, you do that. So there's always an exception.
Right.
Okay, so droppers, here's the things that, because people come in all the time and they're like, I just bought this off of online and it doesn't fit. And
you're like, yeah, here's a shim, go home.
Yeah, you thought it was easy. Now, some of the dropper companies will have like kind of a measuring tool, to show you the stuff. And that does okay if you're, for the most part.
But you need to have the frame to be able to do those measurements.
And
right?
then there's a kind of definitions. They call it insertion depth, which sounds so dirty.
Dude, you're talking about 6mm holes, 8mm holes, 10mm holes, and insertion depth.
Yep.
I've got all kinds of jokes, but we're going to keep it clean today.
This is not that podcast.
It's not that podcast.
Do they even have that podcast?
I think they do.
Really?
We might have that There is a secret Mountain Cog podcast.
Oh, don't tell me that. I'll go looking for it.
It is on the web.
Yeah.
And
it's dirty.
We owe our friend out east a hat. He keeps writing me asking me to send him a hat. I guess we made a commitment to send a hat, and he followed through. So I got to send a hat out.
Okay.
But anyone that can find, we'll do this. Anyone that can find the hidden Mountain Cog episode.
What's it called so they'll know that they found it?
I'm not going to. Well, they'll know when they found it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Anyone that can find the Hidden Mountain Cog podcast episode, you'd have to be a long-time listener because it's like something we talked about in the early days.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's out there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll fund a $100 gift card to Guru Bikes if you can find.
Wait, why do I get it? Oh, you mean they'll get a $100 gift card
to Guru Bikes? Yeah,
Okay.
I'll fund it.
Yeah,
and you'll hook them up.
Dude, you're giving away money now on the podcast.
I want to see if anybody can find the Hidden Mountain Cog episode.
I'm just saying we're doing product reviews now. We're gonna start giving away stuff. I mean, this is legit. We're kind of real here. I'm just saying.
Shit. Hey, I didn't mean that.
I just need to take this time to have everybody like and subscribe.
Follow us. Send us to your friends.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Find the Hidden Mountain. What the fuck were we talking about? I don't even know.
C-post. Okay.
C-post. Okay.
Insertion
depth. Yeah. That Hidden Mountain Cog episode may have some insertion depth humor in it.
Okay. All right. So let's get back. So C-post, you've got a ton of different variables. So the thing that you have that's number one is the diameter. So you can have 27.2. You can have 30.9. 31.6, you can have 34.9. There may be a couple I don't know.
It was like 28.6 too, right?
So in modern bikes, not as much. That was like a Trex, or I'm sorry, that was a special. Sorry, that was a Schwinn size.
Schwinn.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody who's as old as I am may remember better than I do. But Schwinn had kind of their own size.
Anybody that's as old as you is not going to remember well.
Yeah. 27.2 we don't see a lot anymore except on maybe gravel bikes.
Yeah, or little kid bikes.
Yeah, maybe kids' bikes. But for the most part, 30.9, 31.6 are the number one. And then there's been a big push lately to go to this 34.9.
Okay.
Do you know why?
Stiffness?
Yeah, stiffness and strength.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
I see, because we service droppers, I see a number of them bent. And everybody's obsessed with the longest possible dropper. I don't know if it's some sort of phallic thing. I'm not really sure what's going on. But everybody's like, if I can't run a 250 dropper post,
it followed the twerking trend. So I think people just like to drop it low, man.
I don't know. But I will tell you, if you're a big guy, and
I'm a big guy,
you are riding too long a post and you go through like a G out, where you're sitting and you put that leverage, you can bend that post and you're now buying a new post. So, because the amount of stuff you have to change. Yeah. And it's happened quite a bit. And so,
for the record, I've never bent a post.
Yeah. It's most of the time we see it if somebody's kind of riding along and they're seated and they hit a dip
on an e-bike.
Yeah. Not on an e-bike. It doesn't have to be on an e-bike. Not everybody who rides an e-bike are big. So, Lacey.
Fair.
But she would probably bend a post.
She would bend the post before I would bend the post.
Yeah,
probably.
Exactly. So the diameter 34.9 allows them to actually make the stanchion bigger, which will give it a little more strength. And so the problem is the bike manufacturers don't like it. Don't necessarily. They haven't universally adopted it. So some have, some haven't. But so you've got the diameter. That's number one.
Yep.
Then you have to figure out what your leg length and where your saddle is going to be on that frame that you have never ridden.
Right.
Which is tricky.
Yep.
And then you have to make sure that you get the appropriate height that you can actually use. But if there's something, so common on full suspension bikes is sometimes they have
something that blocks the insertion
seat
depth.
tube. Yeah, we've actually had this happen on hardtails where the rivets for the bottles.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Stop the post from going in, and so you have a certain amount of depth that it can go in. And some bikes they don't give you a lot of options. Some bikes have made it their mission to give you full.
Yep.
And so you got to figure that out. If you buy a 200 post, that means it's from the dust wiper on the dropper post up to where it stops when it's fully compressed is 200 millimeters. So then you still have your collar height, which is the seal.
Yep.
That is always too big to go in the frame. So that's got to sit outside of the frame. And then you have your clamp up to the rail, and then you have your saddle height. So all of those numbers are stacked to give you your saddle height. And so you have to be able to figure all that out without a frame that you don't have.
So probably a good recommendation. You can very easily check to see if the diameter matches. And if you've got a dropper and the diameter matches, it might work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when you get the frame, test the seat post that you have. And if it doesn't work, whatever seat post you want to buy, all those websites have like, here's how to calculate the size that you need.
Yep.
Or call up your friendly bike shop. But if you do, you better buy the seat post from them.
So I'm going to just throw a little wrench into that because it makes it sound super easy.
It's not easy.
Well, if you don't have the bike to know what your seat post length is going to be,
you have to get the frame before you do this.
Yeah. So if you don't have the right diameter and you're going to buy a seat post,
wait till you get the frame.
You got to get the frame, and then you probably should see if you can scrounge up a dummy seat post.
Yeah, something to
before
help
you buy it. And actually, that happens. There's a bike in the shop right now where we built a custom hardtail for a customer, Babyfoot.
Babyfoot.
Yeah, the bike's name is Otto, so you'll see Otto show up on Instagram. I'm sure he'll have his own Instagram page, but it's a new house, Hummingbird.
Yeah, we saw those guys at the Sedona Bike Fest.
Yeah, it's a really cool bike, but we did not put a dropper post on his build until we got him in here and fit because he's a tall guy.
Yeah.
And we had to make sure that we got the right one. And so even in the shop, we just had a dummy post in there, then fit him, and then we either have the post in stock or often I have to order them. There's so many different configurations that a lot of times I have to order them. So I had to order him the right post size for his bike. And so that happens a lot. So it's even at a bike shop level, it's hard to have everything in stock.
So we got to do a little rabbit hole on Babyfoot here. First of all, he's got a contender coming after him for the human e-bike classification. Ooh. Chris, my buddy Chris.
Oh, they need to ride together.
He is a human e-bike.
Yeah,
he rides with us. Like I can go as fast as I can on my e-bike. He stays on me the whole time.
Nice.
But I'm looking at his bike, and it's yellow. So Big Bird like mine.
Well, school bus because Mike was a teacher.
Oh, that makes sense. School bus,
and that's why he called it Otto. Do you know why?
No, because I don't.
Simpsons. School bus driver was Otto.
Otto, that's funny.
Cool.
There's always a story,
right? Yeah.
Okay. He typically runs those Versus tires because he can color match, and he's got Maxxis on there. What are those, Recons or something?
Where did he buy that bike?
Where did he buy that bike? From you?
Yeah.
And you would not put
Versus? You carry Versus? Are you kidding me? They do have a cotton candy color that I thought about buying just because it's pink. Yeah. And I'm like, I could show up to the trail with pink tires. That'd be fun. But I'm just not going to buy a tire because of the color. Like, I just can't do that.
All right. You think we have exhausted seat post, maybe seat collar?
That usually comes with the bike or with the frame. Now, if you want a pimped one, you have to figure out what the outer diameter of the tube that it's going over on.
By the way, all this knowledge and all this checking and making sure everything's compatible, like this is part of the service that you get by working with your local bike shop is these guys are experts in it. Yeah. Save you a whole bunch of time and money and headache. If you're just not sure, find a good bike shop and go in is what I say.
One thing that did pop up, I was telling you about that seat post. If that customer had bought the seat post themselves
ahead of time.
They bought the same brand that we carry. Guess how much? Guess how much less they paid than us?
$6.
$0. Like they paid the same amount as if they would have bought it from us, but they got the wrong length. And so when our fitter Tyler went to fit them, they needed a different post, and now it's a used post, and that company won't take it back. If it's a used product. And so here we have the situation where had they bought it from us and it was the wrong post,
you could have taken care of it.
They would have spent the same amount and we would have swapped them out. And so there's a lot of hidden, if you want to talk about secrets of the bike shop, one of the things that people I feel like don't get is how many hidden things that they get from the shop that they don't even know, I'll give you an example. We had a customer, very good customer, come in. And he had purchased some tires online, but he wants us to put them on his rims.
Yeah.
We went and put them on the rims and then sent him on his way. Unfortunately, And you can give us a little shit for this.
Yeah,
I'll take
I know this story already, and I'm going to give you shit for it.
Well, I'll give you more specifics.
They were the wrong size.
No, that wasn't the size. No, this is different. They weren't tubeless ready, and they weren't holding air long. And so in this case, they were road wheels. And in this case, what is common is road bikes have not fully embraced tubeless.
Yeah, they're starting to,
and it's very common that a nice road bike can have wheels on it that may not be tubeless ready. We knew that wasn't the case because we sold him the rims. So we knew they were tubeless ready. He had told us to set them up tubeless, but he had brought them in. We kind of went on faith. And the other thing that we kind of noted that does happen is on road bikes, they hide the logos quite a bit. Yeah. They're not as this big hot patch.
You have to get in there, and it's like etched into the black. You have to get in there with a microscope and a fucking flashlight.
Mountain bikes have gotten pretty anal about putting it clear what's going on. Yeah. Like what your tire compound is, what size it is. If it's tubeless, everything, like if it's got sidewall protection, like it's a selling feature for them, and they're pretty loud and proud about it in most cases. Road bike tires, not necessarily. So our mechanic did not notice they weren't tubeless. He kind of took on faith that this guy had bought tubeless, and they weren't. And then we ran into this problem. Now he doesn't have wheels that hold air, because those road bikes are very sensitive to their tubeless setup, and non-tubeless road tires don't have a bead that locks properly, and they don't necessarily have the profile that locks properly. And even with sealant, they often won't hold air. So this situation where had he bought those tires from us and we had made that mistake, there would have been a zero net for him. We would have put the right ones on, and he would have gone on his way. But because it was bought, you can't. There's nothing you can do for him. We don't have that opportunity. Yeah. And so that's one hidden secret that people don't know. Another hidden secret is somebody came in and they wanted to build their own wheels. And building wheels is it happens. And honestly, there's books on it, there's videos on it. It's not impossible to do.
Yeah, it's a dark art.
It is one of those things where the more you do it, the easier it is. But some people just want to work on their own stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. I've built my own race wheels before. They were awesome. Took me like 17 days to do it, but but they were great, So this person had come in and said, I need this length spoke, and I'm going to build my own wheels. Please order me these spokes. And so we ordered them the spokes. They weren't the correct ones because they had not used the calculator correctly, and they could not return them because they had already used them.
Yeah.
And it's one of those where, in this case, we had actually told them, are you sure? Because for a fee, we will calculate your spokes.
Yep.
And then, you don't have to worry about this. He's like, I know what I'm doing. And so he ordered the spokes, and unfortunately, they were the wrong. And I will tell you that our guys who are master wheel builders have had that happen to them, because
it's not a simple thing, right?
It's not. And there's a lot of calculators online that they're not always correct. And it's very easy to get the wrong measurements for the hub, depending on, if you're using a stock configurator like DT, right? And maybe you picked the wrong hub. Maybe you picked the center lock and not the 6-bolt, or maybe you just picked the wrong year and they slightly changed it. So the ERDs, which is the effective rim diameter, I believe is what it's called. Somebody's going to change me on that, but ERD tells the wheel builder what the size of the rim is.
Right.
And those are not always correct. In fact, our wheel builders don't trust ERDs anymore. They actually physically measure them themselves. And that is a little shop secret, that they have had so many wrong spokes that they've learned that those calculators don't work. So there's a lot of little things that the bike shops do that you don't even know, that save you time and money. But if you want to build your own wheels, I'm down, like, like you said, it's a dark art. It drives me insane. I much rather have our guys build them. They build such a good wheel. So
that's awesome. Okay. I think the last question I have, and maybe there's more, but what about bottom bracket?
Okay. Same thing. Lots of different standards. There's no standards to this stuff. So You do have threaded, and it used to be safe to just say it's threaded, but people don't realize there is a Italian thread, which is totally different, and those are not compatible. And then there's a new what's called T47 thread, which is different too. So you can have at least three different. There are some weird French ones that I'm not going to bring up because there's nothing modern with that.
Yeah.
But there's at least three different types of threads that a bottom bracket could be. Italian is pretty much mostly road bikes, so at least two. And those are the easy ones. The hard ones are press fit. And that's where they just have a cavity. And I think the manufacturers just realized that, one, if you just make a hole and you don't have to go machine anything, it's way cheaper.
Way cheaper.
Yeah. And there are some companies that make that hole very nice. And then there's some companies that don't necessarily make that hole very nice.
See, you're making the hole nice now.
Yep,
you're back to that secret episode.
All I'm saying is if you want a nice hole, you need to spend a little bit more money.
So true in so many different ways.
So press fit got a really bad name because it got adopted pretty quick because I think the manufacturers were like, woohoo, we can save money. And so it just, I mean, like overnight, every bike seemed to have them. One of the problems is if the tolerance is not correct, you can have kind of an oval surface.
Right.
And that will create opportunity for some of the bottom brackets to actually move, walk, or creak.
Yep.
And that was really, really common, and press fit got a really bad name. The reason I say that is because we're a pivot dealer. And again, Brian, if you're listening, you'll like what I have to say this time. But Pivot's QC, and they're very tight about their quality control.
Yeah, we saw them in their factory doing that.
So as a seller, I worked at another dealer. I'm not going to name the company because I sell the bikes now. But I worked at a brand who did not have the best QC on their bottom brackets, and we had a constant creaking issue. Then when I opened another shop and became a Pivot dealer, I would say that there was like one bike. I'm not exaggerating when I say there's one bike that the customer just stopped riding a Pivot because
of the creak.
And it was one particular bike that was built in a way that you couldn't put in these thread together ones.
Yeah.
And that bike is so gone and not on the board anymore.
Yeah.
In the time 12, I think we did some calculating, 12 years I've been selling Pivots. We almost never, ever, ever, ever have creaky bottom brackets. Now there's two things that happen. We have a special process here that we found that helps them not creak.
Yeah, you talked about it before, but if you haven't heard this episode, probably good to say it again.
So we use a Teflon, and that helps a lot. But also, I kind of realized that some of the bikes that we sell stock, they come the bottom brackets are inserted by Pivot. And so I don't know if they have a special sauce or anything, but the amount of bikes we've built stock or built from the ground up with Pivot don't have that issue. It really comes down to those quality controls. And if that bottom bracket is not at the right tolerance, you're going to have more issues.
I hate to do this to you, man, but we have to be be honest with our listeners.
Sure. Yeah.
So Lacey's Vault that we bought from you 2 weeks ago while you were out recovering.
Yeah.
When we put it up on the stand and Tyler did the fit.
Did
creak.
So that one, Pivot put the bottom bracket in that one.
So they took it out.
Did they do the Teflon?
Did the Teflon, and it worked. And he said, your Ren said that he thinks they had spec that particular model. I think it's the lowest model of the Vault that you can buy. Has a screw together, but it's like not a
Praxis.
I think it was a Praxis.
Yeah.
And he goes, we're going to talk to Pivot about specing this. This is not a good part here.
There is that factor, but I find it kind of cool that they put the Teflon on and it went away. So
yeah.
Because that was
so far no problem.
Yeah, that was something that I did many years ago, and I just kind of found it online as a hack, and we started doing it. And I've had a couple mechanics that we've hired that have just been like, "You're crazy," and I'm like, just see if it comes back. And now I actually ran an experiment with a friend of mine who bought a Pivot, and we built it from the ground up. And I put in the recommended, just you use the grease and you put it in.
Yeah,
creaked right away. And he's a friend, and I told him, and so he came back, and I'm like, yeah, I'll pull it out, and I'll put
Teflon it in,
and it hasn't been back. And so I'm not going to say that you'll never have a creak on a Pivot. I'm not going to say that you'll never have a creak if you use Teflon, but press fits are much better, and they're really the bike can make or break a press fit for sure.
Right on.
Then you have so we talk about press fit, which is usually the bearing that has a housing around it,
like a plastic housing.
Yeah, plastic for some of them, metal on others. Then there's what's called BB30. There's BB Right. If you get into the road bike world, it gets I pull a lot of hair out when I'm dealing with road bikes because they're insane. Specialized has a lot of weird ones. Specialized had one where they recommended you glue them in, like JB Weld them in. I'm not even kidding. And if there's anybody that works at a Specialized shop that can back me up, just send us a message. But you would have to JB Weld these in, and then if you took them out, you had JB Weld them in again. There's other ones where they recommend using like
how the hell do you get it out if you JB Weld it in?
You hammer that sucker out, and JB Weld's kind of good, but it's not.
It's not permanent.
It's not always permanent. I think there's some where they tell you to use green Loctite, which is
super tough Loctite.
It's not. It's a bearing retainer. There's a number. I don't know what the number is.
Yeah.
But basically,
is it green, red, blue? Is that the order?
but I have bearing retainer that's red.
Yep.
And then I have non-permanent red. There's a couple different. Loctite makes a crap load of stuff.
Yeah.
In general, when a bike shop's talking red, they don't want the thing to come apart. Blue keeps it from rattling apart, and green usually fills gaps.
Right on.
And when you see green in action, when it dries, it looks like a Jolly Rancher. So it dries hard, like a hard candy. And so if there's little crevices or it's not going in all the way or the bearing is kind of loose where it should be, the bearing retainer will kind of keep it in place and not let it move around.
Fills up those gaps.
Yeah. And so that's kind of one of the things that sometimes happens on some brands.
Is there anything else on the
bottom bracket has, so then you have the cranks.
Yep. Okay.
So remember we talked about the boost and non-boost and super boost? Yeah. Well, the cranks can sometimes be variable depending on how wide the back end is.
Chainline.
Yeah. And so your chain line can chain. Some companies, you have to buy a crank to change the chain line, Specialized. I'm sorry. Shimano. Some companies, so Shimano designed their cranks where if you want to change your chain line, you have to buy the crank. Other companies, the crank stays the same, but the chain ring offset changes.
Okay. That's where you put the spacers on or whatever, right?
No, it'll be like a
twist.
Chain ring will have like a dishing.
Oh, I got you.
And so sometimes there's 0, sometimes they're 3 millimeter, sometimes they're 6 millimeter. If it's a off brand, not a mainstream, they may play with that a little bit or maybe split the difference or something like that to make theirs more universal where you use them. And then you can always space the bottom bracket back and forth on a lot of bikes.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Old school, what they call GXP bottom brackets, they would do what's called a bearing capture on the non-drive side. When you shove that thing in the bike and tighten down the non-drive side crank arm, it would actually pinch the bearing and that would hold it in place. And you could actually sometimes see a gap on the drive side where the crank wasn't all the way in. And it was designed that way.
So weird.
Yeah. And that GXP was actually not bad for threaded. What they started to realize with those press fits is that now if you have that gap, you can kind of walk that bearing, that bottom bracket cup out, and so then you had to have wavy washers or sometimes space them to keep that from happening.
Hey, sorry about the background noise, listeners. We've got a monsoon coming through, and I'll do my best to get it out in the signal. I'm not sure I'll be able to, but sorry about that.
Yeah, although I'm loving it. I love the rain.
I love the rain. I'm not going to complain about the rain.
We got a leak though in the roof, so I have to go up and fix that.
Yeah, you better go make sure.
Yeah, no, it's not a big deal. It's kind of in a place that doesn't mess with anything.
Doesn't mess with anything.
I got to go make sure it doesn't ruin the building.
Do you know we've been on one question and we're almost done?
Shit.
That's a good question. I knew this was a good question.
Yeah, this is a really complicated. Buying a frame and swapping parts is really, really hard. Even our mechanics have a hard time because there's all these variables and it's easy. So we didn't talk about disc brake adapters.
No. I forgot about that.
So like rotor size, disc brake adapters, there's some forks. So I sell a lot of forks.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm selling a fork, the brake posts are not, let's say.
But that shouldn't, okay, just so our listeners understand, that shouldn't impact you if you're using the same fork and the same wheel.
Yeah, but it may affect you on the back.
On the rear.
Because some bikes may have a 160 post and then you'll need an adapter to maybe go if you have 180. Or what can happen is the bike may be set up. I have a bike that I just did the other day, and I was like, holy crap, this bike is set up for 203 or 200 in the back. You can't go smaller than 200 in the back of the bike.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
And so the chances that somebody had a 180, they're going to have to now get a rotor and an adapter.
And it was funny. Dane helped me figure out a rear caliper adapter situation on my Gorilla, and he came over and he looked at it, and I had like two adapters like kludged together to make it work. He's like, Jesus Christ, Josh, this is not right. Let me get you the $7 adapter that will fix this, or $17 adapter, whatever it was.
It's funny that Gorilla uses an old standard, and I have a box of those things because all the new ones are post to post, and then that one was IS to post.
IS to post,
and then IS to post in the front back in the day was not the same width as IS post to the rear. So you couldn't use the same adapter. Now post to post, you can kind of interchange.
Dude, if you're not a bike nerd, we have lost half our audience. I'm sorry to any non-bike nerds out there.
It's crazy. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that you have to factor in. So you got to make sure
do we cover the chain line enough?
Chain line may change if the rear spacing changed.
Yep.
If the rear spacing changed, you probably didn't change, you're probably okay. But you probably will need a different bottom bracket. So your old bike may be threaded and your new one may be press fed.
But crank's pretty much standard.
One thing about the bottom bracket is you have to match the bottom bracket to the crank.
To the spindle width, right?
And then you have to match the bottom bracket also to the frame. So it's not like you can say, I need a dub bottom bracket for my pivot. I have to have two numbers. I have to have that dub, which will tell me the diameter.
Yeah.
And then I have to have the frame so I know the shell size. And so you have to get those two things.
So I'm taking away that like the only thing that's standard is the water bottle cage.
Oh God, no. So
you're shitting me.
No, it's for the most part the spacing on those is the same, but like we've definitely sold a new bike where somebody's like, I'm going to use my old water bottle cage, for whatever reason. They don't want to spend $10
and didn't have the right fitment or whatever.
No, like the frame may be smaller and now they can't get the bottle out and they have to get what's called a side loader, which comes in from the side.
Yes.
So even then it doesn't transfer. So depending on the bike. The bike shop, the hardest thing that we have to deal with is ever changing standards, and they never are the same. We just sold this Argon 18 gravel bike. It's sitting over in the fit center, and it's going to get fit, and then we're going to finish the build. And it came in with the new SRAM Gravel Explorer group, and that group is now built like the SRAM transmission, so it hugs the frame.
Right. Direct mount.
Yeah, direct mount to the axle. And I was like, wow, because road bikes have not embraced some of this stuff as fully as the mountain bikes did. And so that thing is now, and it's really cool. If I wanted to throw on like a T-type XO rear derailleur and make that a monster gravel, I can do it, and that's, so there's some standards that are showing up that we really want to stay, but now they got a 32-inch wheels that they're trying to push on us.
Yeah.
So like now I got to think about how many tires am I going to have to stock tires and rims,
different
and
forks,
frames,
probably
forks. Like, oh my God, it's just killing me. There's been a little bit of movement in the road bikes. So we were talking about standards on forks. So tapered is a standard that we've kind of embraced in mountain. On road, kind of a standard, but not really. Because you have tapered, but you have different diameters of taper.
Oh, Jesus.
Depending on where the bike was built. And so you may have a 1 1/8 to 1 1/2, but you may have a 1 1/8 to 1 1/4. And so they get kind of weird.
Oh, Jesus.
And so when we were deep diving on the fork you needed, that's one of the things that kept coming up is what's going on with that fork. Is it the right diameter?
We'll save that one because that was one of my questions, but that'll be another deep dive.
Yeah.
Dane, can I ask you one final question?
Sure.
Okay. I think this might have...
Is it about penetration?
It's not, but it's in that vein.
Okay. All right.
Get it, vein?
Yeah.
This is a very serious question.
Okay.
I've been wondering this. Do guys that prefer small grips also have small wieners?
I would say there's no correlation to that.
But something small feels good in your hand.
So being as somebody who likes big grips, There could be. I don't know. I
don't know. If you like small grips, just let us know.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why.
I do
That's
have
my hypothesis.
short fingers, but I like big grips.
That's weird.
Isn't that weird? So
It's super weird. Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Dane.